Welcome
to the joy of coding.
Hello! Excuse me. Hello, and welcome to episode 142 of The Joy of Coding. My name's Mike Conley. A little frantic today, a little frazzled. Had to start a little late today. I apologize. So things might go wrong a little more than usual in terms of just infrastructure here. For one thing, I am a little bit worried that my microphone is a bit hot. So I'm going to turn down the sensitivity of the microphone just a little bit. Hopefully that's a little bit better. I'd gotten some feedback, not audio feedback, but from users or viewer feedback that my mic was running just a little bit hot. So I've turned down the gain just a little bit. Let me know how that sounds. Hi, how are you? What's up? Today is June 20th, 2018. It's episode 142. I was away last week. I've got a little bit of a throat thing going on here. One more cough. Here we go. In high definition. A cough in high definition. And I think we've got a decent show for you today. Despite all the frenzy, I'm going to try and calm down. I'm going to center myself. I'm going to go zen. All right. So it's episode 142. How are you doing? I was away last week. And we're back today, and it's going to be a good episode. What have we got in store for you today? Well, first of all, I need to remind you that no plan survives breakfast. Things could go horribly wrong during this live stream. All of a sudden I might start dropping packets, or the network will stop working, or someone will ping me over IRC and tell me that there's some emergency bug I need to work on. So what I'm doing might get interrupted. Who knows? None of this has really been pre-planned. I'm really trying to capture software development and the experience of working on software for Mozilla in the raw. So things might not necessarily go according to plan, and that's okay. That is the plan, is that I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that this agenda that we're looking at is something that is available to you. You can actually click on links in here if you have a copy of it, and there is a copy available. So if you're watching this on new Air Mozilla, check out the handouts section, which is somewhere on either side of the screen. If you're watching this on old Air Mozilla, I think there's an additional links section down below, although old Air Mozilla should be decommed by the time you're watching this, probably. So maybe I shouldn't have told you that. And the second thing is that YouTube, for YouTube, there's a video description that has the link. And if you're watching this on Twitch, I'm about to drop the link in the Twitch chat. Here we go. Twitch chat, people. Here's your agenda. Boom. There's also a link in there to rate the episode. Let me know what you thought. If there are things I can do to make the stream better, or maybe the audio wasn't hot enough, or it was too loud, or more sound effects. We want more Zelda sound effects. Let me know. I'll do what I can. I read every rating that comes in, so really appreciate the people who are giving me feedback. Please like and subscribe. You don't have to like and subscribe, but do rate the episode and let me know how I can make things better. I think I'm going to skip over the episode guide part. I just want to get into it today. So if you're curious to know about the episode guide, watch the last episode. Watch episode 141, because I do the preamble where I talk about the episode guide. And instead, I want to dive right into this week's episode. First of all, a quick self-check. Is everything working? Yes, you can hear me. Yes, I'm not dropping frames. Yes, I'm recording. That's a thumbs up. We got sound effects. Everything is working just great. So that's a big thumbs up there. I wanted to give you an update on that bug we were working on a couple weeks back. Remember when we were working on that bug that had to do with the script preloader and the empty XML binding? If you're not sure what I'm talking about, check out episodes 140 and 141, because I'm pretty sure that's where I worked on it. But finally, the patches landed. So I was able to remove the empty binding, and I understand why the performance problem was coming up. And the bug is closed, and that's done. And if you're curious, check out the bug. There's a breakdown in there, and my notes for the bug are also here in the agenda, so you can check those out. You can see all of the notes I gathered while working on that bug. So it's done. Yay! The second thing I want to focus on today, or like the primary thing, I should say, the primary thing that I want to focus on today is Fabricator and Lando. So up until very recently, at Mozilla, there were 2 ways of reviewing code. Every patch, I should say 3 ways of reviewing code, but every patch that goes into Firefox must be reviewed by somebody. And we've had a number of different ways of doing this. For a long time, people were looking at patches inside Bugzilla directly and then commenting on them and just like pushing to a repository. And then we switched to a new tool, sort of like a suite of tools called Moz Review, which allowed us to push patches to a repository and then review them using a tool called Review Board that, full disclosure, I'm a contributor to. But we used Review Board. It was a heavily modified version of Review Board, and that's how you reviewed patches. And then you could land the patches from Review Board by like pulling them off of the repository. There was like an auto landing system. Well, those 2 methods of reviewing code are being superseded by a third new method that is using a new set of tools. The primary tool being Fabricator. Fabricator is a web-based code review tool that was spun out from Facebook. I think Facebook was the first to start using it, and then the company, the little team of people that made it at Facebook, spun out their own company called Facility, and they make a whole suite of tools called Fabricator, and one of those tools is called Differential, I think, or like that's their code review tool. And we're just using that part of Fabricator, is the code review part for the most part. There are a bunch of other things that come with Fabricator, like I think there's a wiki and maybe like project tracking stuff, but I'm not super familiar with the whole suite, but it does have a code review feature, and that's the part we're using. And then there's another tool that's replacing the auto land system that was pretty tightly coupled to Moz Review, and it's now called, like this project is called Lando, and Lando is a project that will take commits that are hosted somewhere like on Fabricator or who knows in GitHub, who knows, maybe somewhere on the internet, and knows how to land those commits somewhere in like Mozilla source code, and does like a bunch of security checks and like it will do a bunch of checks to ensure that certain conditions are met before it lands anything, like the right people have reviewed it, and that the patches can be landed. If they need rebase, like Lando will alert you, like, this patch is no good anymore, it needs to be rebased, that sort of thing. So that's what Lando's for. So there are 2 components of this larger move to a new code review system. And those are the 2 big pieces, Fabricator and Lando. And I've not used either of them ever before. I'm familiar with the sort of the concepts behind them, but I've never actually used them. With the sole exception that someone once sent me a review request using Fabricator, and I reviewed a patch in Fabricator, but this was like a couple of months ago. I'm interested in spending some time today in this episode going through the experience of submitting a patch using Fabricator, a patch for Mozilla for Firefox using Fabricator. And I'm starting completely from scratch here. I haven't done any real front, like ahead of time research on how to do any of this. So I'm going in completely blind, and if I hit stumbling blocks, those are my stumbling blocks. I know the team who's been working behind like the Fabricator integration in Lando, they've been working really, really hard. It's a great team, and I'm really excited to use their stuff. And so any of my like, if I miss seeing a button or something, that's my issue, and treat the Fabricator people nice. So let's start by looking up some documentation. Mozilla Fabricator. Let's start there. So here's a wiki page, and there's a test plan, and the Mozilla Fabricator user guide. That sounds like the most useful thing. Uh-oh, someone says that is the stream, oh no, did the stream go down? Oh no. Air Mozilla stream stopped working. One sec, looking. Apparently the Air Mozilla stream went down. Let me try and Twitch too. Twitch, Airmo, and YouTube, they all went down. Oh no. So for the people who are watching this recording, I apologize. One sec. Looking. So for the people who are watching this recording after the fact, I apologize. you're having to watch me scramble and try and get the stream working again. Let me get this set up. One moment. Just so give me a couple seconds to sort this out. I'm having to like load the tool. This isn't doing what I want it to do. Okay, so I'm gonna switch tactics. I'm gonna stop broadcasting using Air Mozilla 2. Oh. Okay, I think I know what has happened. So I've been using the new Air Mozilla as my repeater, and I have a feeling Air Mozilla 2 just had a small event. They had some kind of like hiccup. Well, the good news is you didn't miss much. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. You didn't miss much except for me just kind of like panicking and trying to open Air Mozilla 2, which when I was trying to reach it, I couldn't. So I have a feeling like Air Mozilla 2 is having a little bit of an issue. But apparently things are working now. I apologize. We're back. If it drops again, do let me know. That was great. People were really responsive in the live hacking channel. On behalf of Air Mozilla 2, I apologize. Where was I? Let me bring the browser back. Yep. So before I dropped the stream, or the stream dropped, what I had done was I had typed in Mozilla Fabricator into my URL bar, and I had found this piece of documentation, Mozilla Fabricator User Guide. And I also found what's called the Fabricator instance. I'm guessing, and because it's purple, I've been there before, I'm guessing that this is where I'm going to eventually need to go in order to like look at review requests or whatever you'd call them in Fabricator. And so we'll dig into this in just a sec, but this is all very fascinating. It's certainly good looking. Air Mozilla is working now apparently, but I think it's a bit behind YouTube and Twitch. People are telling me welcome back. Really appreciate it. This is a really nice UI. Just like from a gut standpoint, it's a really beautiful UI. Everything looks pretty polished. There's like this little stream of activity on the right. That's going to be pretty useful. It looks like you can have multiple repositories. We've got Mozilla Central here. I know the NSS people. NSS is the repository that hosts like a lot of our security related code, like our crypto libraries and certificate stuff. I know they've been using Fabricator for a while, and they've been pretty happy with it. Our build tools are in here. Com Central, that's like SeaMonkey and Thunderbird, they're on here. That's fascinating. And some build stuff's in here. And look, we've got like multiple repository types. You got Mercurial and Git. So that's pretty fascinating that those are both being supported. And there's a link to the Mozilla Fabricator docs. And that might be the same as this. Let's see. Mozilla Fabricator docs, it's going to Moz Conduit, read the docs, Fabricator user. Yes, that is the same thing. So let's follow these docs. Let's open a new tab and read the user guide together and see what's going on. Now, I'm not going to just read these out loud. I'm going to try and boil it down based on what's coming into my eyeballs. So stock Fabricator we've only modified it a little bit, our instance. So that's another interesting thing, is that we're running our own instance of Fabricator. We're not like using a third-party service and like having them manage all of our stuff. We run Fabricator ourselves. That's very interesting. It was the same thing with Moz Review and Review Board. We owned all of that stuff, and the same thing seems to be true for Fabricator as well. Much of Fabricator's user documentation is fully applicable. So Fabricator itself has its own user documentation. That's interesting. But it seems like this kind of boils it down. I'm guessing that this will be like hyper specialized for what I as a Mozillian using the Mozilla Fabricator instance needs to know. So apparently there are some sections that are of interest: Arcanist and Differential. So Differential is the code review tool, and Arcanist is the command line interface to Fabricator used to submit patches for review. So that sounds pretty important. There's a quick start guide, the user guide, and a guide to ArcDiff. And that's all available in the Fabricator documentation. Let's look at the Arcanist quick start guide. Let's start there. Maybe we can get this command line tool, because I don't think I have it installed by default. Let's see here. Let's see an example of it being used, and I can see if I've got it installed, like ArcDiff. I don't think I have it. Like if I could do arc help or something, arc is not found. So I have not in the past I have not installed arc before Arcanist and forgotten. So I'm starting from scratch here. Quick guide to getting Arcanist working for a new project. So here's the guide for Mac OS X. That's what I'm on, so I'll click on that. And I need to install PHP, which should be installed by default. Lo and behold, it is. Arcanist itself, well, I'm guessing that that's how I'm getting into here. So that I'm hoping to satisfy shortly. And then I do have Mercurial installed. And then we have to configure this stuff. Wait, hold on. Explains how to install Arcanist on Mac. I'm guessing the instructions on this previous page are probably applicable. And that these are like special after the fact stuff that I need to do, but that like I can follow these instructions. That's what I'm interpreting that as. So make sure I've got PHP. I need Git as well. I'm pretty sure I have Git. I know I have Git. And then I'm going to install Arcanist. So it wants me to like create a directory, cd into it, and then clone some tools, and then add arc to the path. So I can pick anywhere. I'm gonna say, do I have like a tools? Nope. I'm gonna create a tools. Actually, where would I do this? I'm gonna just create a tools directory. Oh, there's a file called tools. Maybe there's like a. So I have a tools directory here, and then I'm going to clone this repository. And then I'm going to clone this repository. And then Arcanist is in, I'm guessing, bin. Yeah, there's arc. And arc is a bash script that will run some PHP. Okay. So I need to export my path. I need to basically include this directory, this bin directory, into my path. So let's do that next. So we'll say export path, ed equals path, and then that. I think that's what it wants. Yep. And now if I do arc -- help, yay! I have a bunch of like commands and stuff. And wow, this thing looks like it does a lot. Wow, code review and revision management utility. Look at all these things. Amend, back out. So this is like maybe an abstraction layer over top of my version control tool. So maybe it doesn't matter which version control tool I'm using. I could potentially use arc instead of using the version control tool directly. That's interesting. And apparently, I think there was something I read just now about like diff, guide to ArcDiff is what I'm going to want to read. So there's a tool in here called ArcDiff that, yeah, I'm going to want to know how to use. Okay, another useful application is Herald, which can perform actions such as sending notifications. Let's not worry about Herald just yet. Let's worry about getting quickly started. Now, I think I already have a Fabricator account because I've reviewed a patch at one time in Fabricator. So if I click on login, let's see what happens. Right, so we're going to log in using Bugzilla login flow. And it's going to want my two-factor auth. So hang on a second, let me just do this off screen. Boop, boop, boop. I know that the two-factor auth code expires as soon as I use it, but that doesn't mean that you should see it. Hold on a second. Let me just get my auth stuff going here. I'm glad that two-factor auth is being used here. That's very nice. That is a cool security feature. And so I've put in my two-factor auth. And I put it in wrong, apparently, because I'm using the wrong tool. I have to use this one. Yeah, that's the one, Fabricator. So I've got a couple of like two-factor auth applications on my phone. Right, okay, so now I'm logged in. Let me bring my browser back. Okay, so I'm logged in, and this is what it looks like to be logged in. There's my my avatar from Bugzilla, presumably, and these are like things I must review. Thankfully, I don't have like a bunch of stuff to do. That's nice. And then there's like this feed of activity, and then there's like a bunch of stuff here on the left for things I can do, presumably. I'm not, oh, Diviner is documentation. That's very nice. Dashboards, I can create custom dashboards maybe. That sounds excellent. Herald, apparently for hearing about things, for getting notifications. I'm not sure what design review is, but maybe that allows us to review designs, maybe screenshots of things, and then there are more applications. So I could probably go deep on some of these things, but I'm going to ignore most of this stuff, and I'm going to focus mostly on this stuff up here, the code review part. Let's keep going through the setup part. You know, prompt to create a new Fabricator account. So I must have done all this already. I've already created a Fabricator account. So I'm sorry you don't get to see that bit. Comments surrounding punctuation. So we have this convention in Moz Review as well, but like in Bugzilla, we have this convention where our IRC nicks, because we often use IRC to communicate, at least in engineering, engineers tend to use IRC. Sometimes we're using Slack as well. But the name that you use in IRC is referred to as the IRC nick. And what we tend to do is append our IRC nick to our Bugzilla username with like colon and then IRC nick as a convention. And it looks like that's being used and parsed and put into the username field. Let's see. Yeah, M. Conley is my username, presumably. And here you can see my Bugzilla username. You can see it was like truncated a little bit, but it pulled out the M. Conley from my username, so that's cool. So it did the right thing. That's great. So I think I can ignore most of this because my Fabricator account is set up. I've already got Arcanist more or less set up. Apparently I can submit patches via the web interface as well, but the preferred method is to use Arcanist. So let's use that way. Oh, there were some steps I had to follow for Mac OS that I ignored. Let's look back at those. Path environment should include Arcanist bin and PHP and your VCS command. I've got all that, yep. And your editor environment variable should point to some CLI editor like Nano, which is the best editor. Nano. I have a love-hate relationship with Nano. I'm not sure if they're trying to pick a fight there. Developers are very like passionate about their editors. I don't mind Nano, it's fine. But I have a feeling they're being a little bit playful there. Let's make sure. I'm pretty sure my editor is set at something. Let's see what it is. Vim. I have my editor set to Vim, which is a fine editor. I'm not going to say it's the best editor, but it is fine. And I can edit my profile to permanently configure the environment variables. Now, I probably should do that. I don't want to have to like re-add Arcanist to my path every time I start up. So I'm going to like, whoopsie daisy. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to drop it into my profile. I'm just going to do that off screen. I'm pretty sure there's nothing sensitive inside my profile, but just in case. All right. So that means that new terminal windows should get Arc as well. Let's double check that. Nope. Interesting. Did I not do that correctly? If I... Wait a second. Maybe because I'm not using... I'm using iTerm and not like the built-in terminal for Mac OS. I wonder if I have to actually add this to Bash profile. Yeah, that's what I think I have to do. Yeah, that's where a bunch of my other rules are. I had forgotten. So let me quickly add that to my bash profile. Again, I'm doing this off screen. I apologize for that. Okay, so now if I create a terminal, I say arc help. Hey, there we go. We're good. Cool. And anything else I need to know? No. I should be able to run arc like a normal command. That is true. Let's keep going. On Ubuntu, I have to do all this stuff that doesn't apply to me. If your project does not currently have an arc config checked into its repository, I can create one locally. Now let's see if we have one. If I look inside Mozilla Central, is there an arc config? There is. There's one already here, and here are the settings. I guess it's, so that's the Fabricator instance, the call sign, which I'm guessing is maybe just a way of referring to the repository, and then history immutable false, which is interesting because I think we work really hard at making sure that history is immutable, at least in the Mozilla Central repository. You don't want to screw everyone by rewriting history. I'm not sure what this means, but I'm assuming, hard to say. I'm guessing that it might allow me to rewrite some history locally, which is fine. I do that all the time with Mercurial. I'm just guessing there. And then the next step is to authenticate Arcanist with our Fabricator installation. So run install certificate. Oh, great. So let's run that. What? Why have you not heard of Arc before? I just added you. Reset Arc. What? Didn't I just do this? Arc. And then this is Central Arc. There we go. Small hiccup there. Not sure what was up. What's the deal? Okay, now it wants me to paste an API token. I'm definitely going to do that off screen. Sorry about that. All of this login stuff has to occur off screen. Let me drag a tab out. Pardon the noise. That was unrelated. So now I have to put in my two-factor auth thing again. Hopefully not much of this has to occur off screen moving into the future, but a lot of the initial stuff, it's not super surprising that it has to happen off screen. Give me a sec. I have to put in my two-factor, put in some kind of API token. Hopefully you can't see me doing this. If you can, that is a security problem, and then I will clear the back scroll. But just to be even safer, I will close the terminal and open a new one. Yeah, okay, so that's done, and I'll close this tab so I don't accidentally go back to it. So I've got the Fabricator instance hooked up with Arc now. And I've got a local key stored in arcrc. I won't look at it, I'll just assume it's there. And now, how to submit patches. There are a few ways to use Arcanist and differential. Fix-up commits, which are similar to GitHub's process, and amended commits, which is similar to Moz Review's model. That's probably what I'm going to do, is amended commits. I tend not to do fix-up commits, but here they're walking us through what it's all like. So this is some scenario where we create a file, we add the file, and we commit the file, and then we use arcdiff. So this is presumably the tool to communicate with differential. Excuse me. Differential. Arcdiff for, I guess, differential. And you'll be taken to an editor to add extra details. So that's presumably Nano if you were configured as was suggested, but for me it will be Vim. Commit message will be used to create the revision title and summary. That's handy. Right, so arcdiff will, it sounds like arcdiff is going to assume that the current commit is the one that we're working with, and it's going to be looking at the commit message. So I'm curious about what it's going to do if there are uncommitted changes. My guess, well, I have no idea. We could test that out. I don't know. I don't know what it would do with uncommitted changes if I said arcdiff. The other fields are optional with the exception of bug, which must be set to a valid BMO bug number. That's interesting. So I can't push something up to Fabricator or differential. I'm just going to refer to it as Fabricator. I hope that's okay. I know that's not exactly, that's not precise. We're actually just working with differential, but I'm going to say Fabricator for the sake of simplicity. So you can't push a commit to Fabricator unless there's a valid BMO bug number. And by valid, I assume it means an existing BMO bug number. So I've done this in the past where I'll create a commit where I'll say like bug and then 6 or 7 question marks because I haven't actually created a bug yet. I'm guessing it won't like that. Okay. A limitation of Fabricator currently prevents us from seeing this field with a bug ID from the commit message. However, we may be able to work around this by implementing a mock command that wraps arc. Well, that sounds exciting, but don't need to do that just yet. So I think it's a fine rule for now. Just make sure a bug exists for the commit that we're talking about and have it be in the commit message. That's what we've been doing up until now anyways. So just don't do your my freaky question mark thing and I should be okay. Oh, apparently, so Israel, I'm going to butcher your last name because I don't know if I've ever said it out loud, Israel. Israel Madume? Madumi? Oh, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Israel. I've written it so many times, but I've never actually said it out loud. Israel is on the Fabricator Lando, engineering tools team, and he's telling me over IRC that this part of the documentation is actually slightly out of date, and that if I don't put a bug, it'll create a public revision in Fabricator, I guess without a bug number. So you can do it without a bug number, but no matter what, it'll be public, which is interesting. So you definitely don't want to do that if the patch that you're working on is security related, because then everyone will see it. Okay. Madume. All right, it was my first go. My first instinct was correct, I think. Madume. Excellent. Israel Madume. Shout out to Israel. He's the best. You may want to add a reviewer, which should be a Fabricator username. So this is interesting. So up until now with Moz Review, what we've done historically is in the commit message for the commits in the series, maybe you've got one commit or maybe you have 5, but for each commit message, we have this basically a holdover from the Bugzilla Splinter review days where you'd put the review user, the people you want review from in the commit message with our question mark and then the username. And that's how you indicate I want a review from this person. Let's see if it does that. You may want to add a reviewer, which should be a Fabricator username. It doesn't sound like it's pulling reviewers out of the commit message, which is okay, because it's never been that was always kind of a clumsy thing, because the username was never super obvious which you should use. For example, there are some people that had usernames in Moz Review that's different from their IRC nicks, and so you'd have to put in their Moz Review username as the review in the commit message, and that would map correctly, but then when it landed, it would be this weird Moz Review username with a couple of numbers at the end, which would always look a bit strange. There's at least one person I know of who has that situation where their IRC nick is not the same as their Moz Review username, and so that was always a bit strange. It sounds like we might be bypassing this by making it so that you choose the reviewer either at commit or at submission time in the editor or in the web interface. We'll see, because before this episode's done, I'm gonna try and get something up for review. Is my goal. So this is all theoretical. We'll see. After you exit the editor, so presumably we were in the editor when we added a reviewer, and it should be a Fabricator username. You can also add one or more subscribers who will be notified of updates to the revision. That's very interesting, and that is not a thing we had with Moz Review. So if there are people who you feel should be passively notified about what's going on, that's pretty handy. After you exit the editor, the revision should be created. Here's an example output using our development instance, and then it outputs a URL. Great. And then if you visit that URL, you will see that it's labeled needs review, which is the default state. It's public unless the bug ID you entered is a confidential bug to which you have access. For convenience, an attachment is created on the bug, just the URL of the new revision. So that's another thing that Moz Review did, is it creates attachments in Bugzilla, so that's easy to go from Bugzilla to the code review tool. So that's handy. With the description being the revision's title. Good. Finally, you will see a few actions on the revision which are automatically performed by our BMO integration code. Okay. So let's just try and do that. I've got, let's get down to business. Let's see if we can make a revision happen. So what have I got? I've got like, I hope, let's see, I've got like, so here's an example of where I put like bug, question mark, question mark, question mark, but I've got this like revision over here that might be worth reviewing. Or here, this one also might be worth reviewing. So let's try and do this one. Let's see what's inside it first. Let me make my terminal a bit larger so you can see what's happening. Okay. So I have, this is my graph of my repository right now. I currently have this patch checked out, and this is the one I'm thinking of putting up for review. I don't actually want it reviewed right now. I don't actually have any work ready for review just yet. This is part of a series of work, but I want to test this out. So hopefully by putting this up for review, I can like take it down again or like remove the review request, and it'll allow me to test the workflow. So this is the one I want to put up for review. So let's check that one out. Have Mercurial wake up and do its thing. And then what I'm going to want to do is arc diff, presumably. Wow, Mercurial. Not normally taking this long to update 2 files, but there you go. So I'm going to say arc diff, and we're going to see what happens. Drum roll. Hang on, let me start up a drum roll. I actually have that sound effect. Here we go. Drum roll. Arc diff. Ooh. So a bunch of output. So it's telling me that there's a bunch of untracked files. Untracked changes in the working copy. That's absolutely true. I have a bunch of untracked changes locally, and I definitely don't want those included. So I'm going to say, ignore these untracked files. Yes, please do. In the future, I should probably purge these. I should use HG purge to get rid of them. A bunch of these are like leftover conflict files that I never cleaned up. So that's just me being sloppy. That's not this is my fault, basically what I'm saying. Ooh, and like here we go. We're inside our editor. I'm inside Vim. So wait for inner and outer window nuking. So this is the commit message. Summary. Oh, so it knew to pull the, so I didn't put summary in this like summary colon, but it knew to take out the paragraph I'd written underneath the bug title and put it under summary. That's handy. We got the Moz review commit ID here. That's also part of the summary. I'm not entirely certain if we're keeping these commit IDs, but for now, there we go. And then it also has fields for test plan, reviewers, subscribers, and bug number. Now, it doesn't look like it filled out the bug number automatically. Let me go back to the documentation. About bug number. They're optional with the exception of bug, which must be set to a valid bug number. So right, okay, a limitation of Fabricator currently prevents us from seeding this field. So that's what it's talking about, not what I was thinking. I thought maybe it was talking about creating a bug in the event that one doesn't already exist. But what it's talking about here, and what I misinterpreted this, it's saying that there's currently a Fabricator limitation that prevents us from seeding the bug number down here with the bug number up here. But it sounds like that's a thing that is being worked on. So I'm just going to put in bug number 1353013. And what's down here? A bunch of comments, but new differential revision, describe changes in the new revision, include commits to branch default. Arc could not identify any existing revision in your working copy. If you intend to update an existing revision, that's fine. I'm not updating, so that's okay. And let's see what happens. Now, there's going to be a little bit of a race, because as soon as we do this, you know what? Maybe I should warn McCrate, because he's the one who's like, oh, I haven't actually put anyone under reviewers. So maybe this will be okay. Because no one's under reviewers, McCrate's not going to be notified, except he'll see the attachment go on the bug. So I'll probably be all right. I'm not going to be like putting something into his queue that he needs to ignore or something. So I think I'll be okay. Let's see what happens. Linting, no lint engine configured. Running unit tests, no unit tests. So that's interesting. We might be able to like do like auto linting and unit tests before committing for review. That's a great idea. Creating a new differential revision. It did it. And so that worked out nicely. Let's take a look at the revision it created. Okay, so it's got my bug number and my summary up here. It's saying that it needs review. It's public, so the world can see this. And I think what we have here is, my status. It was authored by me. So it says authored, but I guess it's not that the commit was authored then. It's the review request, or the revision was authored. That's fine. I mean, that's just, it depends on what you're talking about. That's also really interesting, is that so my repository has been changed slightly. I guess it updated the commit message. That's what I'm guessing occurred. So now if I like export, my commit message has been updated with a differential revision. And so I've got like the obsolete markers in here. Like this change set, the original one is obsolete, and these are all orphans. I'm gonna have to rebase, and that's okay. But that's something I'm just gonna have to do. Now it's saying no reviewers. It's associated with the right bug. Let me click on that. The link works. Yep, here, this is the right bug number. That's great. And hang on, before we go away, let's take a look and see what got created. Yeah, a Fabricator request attachment thing was added. That's nice. And then it's got the summary, right, which is fine. And then the repository that's going in. We don't really use, like, branches in Mercurial are very different from branches in Git, and we just use, I think, the default branch by default, unless we're talking about specific tagged branches or something, which I don't think unless I'm a sheriff or managing like a release or something, I don't think the branches are a thing I ever need to touch. So that's fine. It's the default branch. No linters were run, no test coverage, which is interesting. It'd be nice to get those hooked up, because I think we have like ESLint, and we have a bunch of tests all over the tree. And if we can make that if we can hook that stuff up, that would be very nice. We can get like some test information and linting information into the review request really early on. Maybe we can even abort the arcdiff step in the event that we failed the lint or unit tests. I guess this is about coverage as opposed to the results, because it's talking about unit test coverage. So we can get like a coverage report. That's really handy. But if we fail linting, that might be handy to like bail out of arcdiff so that we can fix it up and not even reach the Fabricator step. You have the person get that feedback immediately. That'd be nice. And that might be the case. Who knows? Once we get the linter stuff set up. Build status. It's buildable 2162. Build 2361, wait until Bugzilla updates revision. Build 2360. So these are like, I'm not sure what the numbers mean, but they're increasing incrementally, one at a time. So it looks like this is maybe forward in time, and maybe what it's doing is this is some kind of timeline of things that occurred, and it's saying it is buildable. Something like that. And then here's another timeline. This one appears to be moving forward in time, going down. So I created the revision here. Harold, that other thing, added a project secure revision. Really? Secure revision? This revision contains... I'm not entirely certain why it added... It's public, but Harold added a project, secure revision. All right. FabBot changed the visibility from custom policy to public, no longer required. That's nice. So, maybe it starts by making sure it's secure, and then it opens it up. And that would make a lot of sense. If, like, we default to accepting something as secure so that we don't have to go and, like, close things up after it's already been out in the open. That would make a lot of sense. Maybe that's what's happening. It changes the visibility to public, and then changes the edit policy to all users, and then it removed the secure revision part. So it adds the secure revision and removes the secure revision. That makes a lot of sense here, I think. Now I get it. And then something called Harbor Master completed remote builds. Let's take a look at what that means. I guess these are wait until Bugzilla updates revision. So I don't, this isn't actually a build step, but it looks like it's some kind of prerequisite to having things be green for the revision. And that is, I guess, us talking to Bugzilla. That's how I'm interpreting that. And then we get down to the juicy bits. So this is the patch. We're talking about the different files that are changed. I guess this might be, we can look at interdiffs and then the various commits that are included. That's interesting. So apparently we can get like maybe multiple commits. I don't fully know yet. But commits is listed in here. And then these are the changes that I made. And then that's it. So that's great. And so we got a lot of the features that I'm used to from Moz Review as well. Like I can see not only the lines that were changed, but what on each line changed. So it's normally in Moz Review, a change would be yellow. In this case, it's saying red because these lines were removed. These particular things were swapped out for these things. And then these lines were added. And then this whole chunk was added. There was nothing over here. And this whole thing was added. And these were added. So that's useful information. Now, can we go up? I think we can. Yeah, we can go up to the top. We can see more. I've noticed that the code, this was a problem in Moz Review as well, but the JSM is not syntax highlighted. That would be nice. I'm curious if whether or not if it was a JS file, it'd be syntax highlighted. My guess is yes. And maybe that's a thing I can like highlight as. Ooh, maybe I can choose. Yeah, there's our syntax highlighting. Very nice, very nice. So that's cool. I have that power. Very cool. And what other powers do I have in here? Show all context, so I can just expand the whole thing out. That's great. Collapse the file. That's presumably the other direction. Browse in diffusion. I don't think that's a tool that I'm familiar with. I'm guessing it's a repository viewing tool, kind of like, oh, it's like a repository viewing tool, and it shows like the history of various lines. That's nice. View standalone. Let's see what that does. So I guess I can split out a particular change to like one file's change and view it on its own. View unified. I'm not sure what that means, but that's basically just linking to this page again. So I'm not certain what it means by there, but that's okay. Change text encoding. I don't think I need to do that, but that's nice that I can do that. I can show raw left or raw right. That's also very handy. So I can see what the original left was, the original file on the left, and then the new changes in the raw on the right all at once. That's super handy. And then what else do I have in here? Configure editor. And then here are some like configuration things. I'm a bit wary to go down here. I want to make sure I don't show anything I'm not supposed to show, like API keys or anything, but I think I'm okay in here. Edit. So apparently I can edit files, but I don't know if that's part of the Fabric, like the differential tool. I don't think like I can edit this right now, and that's okay. I mean, I just want to have someone review it. Now reviewing, it looks like the way you comment on a line is by choosing the line numbers again. So like I can choose like a range here, and then yeah, I can create an inline comment. That's nice. Very rich. Editor is brought up. Here is a comment, and I can like bold something. So it looks like it's using Markdown or not Markdown. I'm not sure what this markup is, but I don't think it's markdown. Monospaced, very interesting for code. That resembles markdown. And then a link. Let's link this to, it's kind of like wiki, media wiki syntax, but not quite. And is there a preview? I'm guessing over here. Yeah, preview. Hey, cool. I turn that off, and then there's some documentation here. Oh, it's called remarkup. And then here's the markup. So it's not markdown. It's something called remarkup, but it looks similar. In some ways, it looks a little bit similar to markdown. It's like if you took media wiki syntax and markdown, and you just kind of like threw them together. Oh, you can also do like this as an alternate link. So maybe it accepts markdown. Like if I do, let me try some what I remember from markdown. Header. In the beginning, there was the link, and then a link to my blog. Let's take a look. Yeah, so it seems like it understands Markdown, which is really, really nice. Because I believe in the future, Bugzilla is also supposed to understand Markdown. Now, but I don't think that the comments are mirrored to Bugzilla. Let's try. I'm going to create a little bit of bug spam. I apologize. I might create bug spam. We'll see. Test comment, please ignore. I'm going to comment this and then save draft. And apparently this is unsubmitted, not done. So we have some kind of like state. And at the top here we have like this toolbar. It's very similar to review board in that like there's it seems like there's like a review like publishing step, which is nice. So if I do multiple, here's another thing to ignore. 2 unsubmitted. So, oh, and I can like toggle back and forth between them. So I bet if I had like 5 unsubmitted, I could like go between all of them. That's actually really, really handy. So I'm gonna trash that comment. Oh, I can undo that. That's nice. Trash that one. And this menu button, hide all inlines, list inline comments. Oh, so I can like take a look at all of my inline comments in one place. That's really nice. And then how do I publish my review? So I'm guessing that's something that happens down here. I can like I can add an action, revision actions, plan changes, abandon revision. I'm gonna abandon the revision. This was posted mainly to test Fabricator and differential. Sorry for the noise. I might actually reopen this in the future once the rest of the patches in this series are worth reviewing. And it's like live updated down here, which is really neat. And then presumably I can use the same sort of like markup, which is nice. Full screen mode, pin form on screen. Oh, that's cool. So I can like put some notes together while if I'm reviewing and I want like a global note taking place. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna abandon the revision. It looks like I can add multiple actions. Plan, or no, I can only choose one, but I can then change it. Okay, good. So let's abandon the revision. Submit. And then what happened? So here we've got my my revision. It's got my comment here. Test comment, please ignore. There's a checkbox for what saying it's done. That's great. I love that from Moz Review where you could like open a thing as being done or not. I can say that's done. I can undo that doneness. I can also like reply, which is nice. But I can say whether or not it's done. That's great. But it is now marked as abandoned with a little airplane. That's cool. Now what about Lando? I can't actually view in Lando yet. Because, well, first of all, I need to be logged in to initiate a landing. So let me log into Lando. I don't want to land this right now. I'm going to move this to a different window just in case. Ignore the noise. Lando is requesting access to stuff. Yeah, do it. Okay, now I'm logged into Lando. This is what Lando looks like. Now this revision was not reviewed by anyone except for me, and I left a nonsense comment. But Lando already knows about it, which is nice. And it's got a timeline here. There's been no attempt to land this revision. Great. That's great. I'm glad. There's like a timeline here, or like details. I authored it at this time. There's a commit message. I can look at the whole thing. Very nice. This revision is not currently accepted. Oh, shoot. I could maybe land it. I don't want to. So apparently this is where I could like potentially land the commit. I'm not going to do that, but apparently, here's what I'm guessing would happen. If this was actually reviewed, then this box would be checked, and then I could just like go ahead and land it. It seems like right now I can override that and probably just land it, and I'm guessing that's because I have special powers. I have like L3 commit access, and I'm guessing that that's why I'm allowed to do this and then this. I don't actually want to test this. I don't want to click that button because I don't want to land this yet. It's not been reviewed, so I don't want to test it out. But that's what I'm guessing would occur. There's a help here. So there's a Lando guide. Maybe reading about it will help. Let's read. There's some commentary inside Fabricator. Oh, I don't think it's for me, though. That is a question, just a general question for people in the Fabricator channel. So about Lando's new automatic code service loosely integrated with our Fabricator instance. Loosely integrated. I think that's a key point because like I think our original Autoland stuff was pretty tightly coupled to Moz Review and was also pretty tightly coupled to Mercurial. And I have a feeling Lando is a lot more loosely coupled with both Fabricator and the repositories it talks to. Like I think Lando can talk to Git, which is particularly nice because we have some projects that are in Git repositories or using GitHub or something. Or maybe it needs to transplant stuff, patches in GitHub, and then send them into Mercurial repositories. I believe Lando knows how to do that, which is really cool. Its purpose is to easily commit Fabricator revisions to their destination repository. All revisions view and Lando link. If the revision has been accepted, the link will be active. So I guess if I've got enough review, if I've got like my reviewers have given the sign off, everything's been done, then I can click on that link. And then that button is available. It's what I was thinking. Like the button's big and green. I just click it, and then I land it. You also directly go to a revisions Lando page by specifying the revision ID in the Lando URL. Can't yet land confidential revisions. That's fine. And then I have to be logged in to initiate a landing. Logins are handled by Auth0. That's fine. The revision must be associated with a repository in Fabricator. Destination repository must be configured in Lando. That's fine from Mozilla Central, I'm certain. You must have the required SCM permissions to land the destination repo. So I have level 3, and I guess what they're saying is in order to initiate the landing, you have to have level 3. So even to see this button, to even see the where was I? Where even was I just now? Man, I'm completely, nope. Is that another window? Yeah, to even see that button, I'm guessing I'd have to have level 3. And a landing is not already in progress. Okay, that's good. So a landing could take a little while. The repository the tree might be closed or something, and so when you initiate a landing, it seems like it puts it into a state where it's in flight, and then once the landing occurs or it fails to occur, that's when it bounces out of that state. If any of the above are not true, you're shown an appropriate error, and the land button will not be displayed. Green land button will be displayed. Take care to verify the information. There may also be one or more warnings if you previously landed this revision. So that's nice. Like we've got a lot of like smarts built into Lando. It's going to attempt to tell you as much as you can. Like, I'm always like paranoid about landing stuff. That's the time when you're going to be kicking off a bunch of continuous integration infrastructure, and I want to make sure that the stuff I land is the right stuff. And so I'm glad that Lando is giving me a lot of ability to see that I've got the right stuff up there. Like, it will allow me to look at the exact revision, and it will make sure I can, like, here check out the commit message, make sure it's all good, and that, like, all the boxes have been ticked. Like, it was reviewed. I am re-landing this thing because it has not yet landed or was backed out, and then go ahead. So I like that it's protecting me. It's protecting me from making a mistake, which I don't want to do in Mozilla Central. So that, or I'm guessing the auto land repository. That's the thing. I don't think it's going to land directly in Central. I'm guessing it's going to land in some kind of like integration branch, presumably auto land. This will execute quickly. There are a lot of pending landings, or if the trees are closed, it may take longer. The landing request will stay in the queue until it is executed. The timeline will be updated with the results. That's great. I wonder if I have a feeling I can see what's going on with landings if I just go to the Lando main page, right? Can I see like in process landings or a timeline? I guess not. That's okay. That makes sense. Like, there might be stuff that I'm not supposed to see, presume, like, well, except that it doesn't do confidential bugs. So I don't. But I guess they don't have a timeline yet, or like an activity list yet. That's okay. Let's take a look. Now that, so mission accomplished. We got a patch up, and I used Arcanist, and the patch worked, and it seems like all of the workflow, like, I get the workflow. I think I can make this work. I'm curious how the multi-commit thing is supposed to work. I might try a couple minutes of that. But the other thing I want to do is taking a look at what Fabricators act like. Let's look at some in-flight reviews. So there's some recent activity in here, for example. Let's take a look. So here's some stuff. Here's like a review request that was opened by Joel Marr, and he asked Andrew Halberstadt for review. And here as well, we don't have the linters, the unit test coverage listed, but here we have this like really nice timeline. J Marr requested review of this revision. Ahal accepted this revision. So this was pretty clean cut. This is pretty simple. Let's look at a little more complicated one. Here's one where Tom Prince requested changes from a thing. Let's take a look at this. This needs revision. So one reviewer said yes, another reviewer requested changes. And here in our timeline, Calic created the revision, requested review, updated the revision, so you can update the revision even though one's already open. That's nice. Aki loves it. We've got some like commentary here. That's nice. Can I like jump to the... Yeah, we can jump to the line. That's great. Quick jump. And we've got like a conversation happening in here. That's super good. And then Dustin added a subscriber, Dustin. So I guess Dustin's watching this stuff. Added some inline comments. Responded to some of the stuff that I guess Aki was saying. And then they go back and forth a bit. Use some like mono-spaced stuff there. And then Tom Prince was like, I like the explicitness this gives us about dependent tasks, but then like opens up a couple of things to do here. And as I'm not the author, I can't say done. I can't just go around and like click on done. I'm presumably the author or the reviewer is able to do that. And so Tom Prince has asked for some additional stuff. And here again are all the changes that were made, but there's more stuff because I saw Calic had updated a revision. So let's see if we can view how that works. So there was an original revision, a diff 1, and then there was a diff 2, and it looks like I can look at an interdiff, and I'm guessing to choose the interdiff, it's like choose the before and after. I want to see an interdiff between diff 1 and diff 2, and let's show the diff. Great. So here's the interdiff. Very interesting. I think this is the interdiff. I think that was the interdiff. 20, 21, 92, 17. No, it's not. That wasn't the interdiff. Well, what was the original? If I look at between here and here, base and diff 1. Okay, so this was the original revision. That's what happened. Okay. So that makes sense. And then between these two, he definitely updated that stuff. Okay, I think I get it. I get it. That's how you choose how you view your interdiffs. In Moz Review, it's a slider. In Fabricator, it's like you choose the before and the after. It's kind of like a wiki page. The media wiki is the same way. So that's handy. I get that. For commits, we just have the one commit and stack. So stack is my understanding of how we're doing multiple commits across different, like how to do multi-commit review. And it looks like there are 2 commits or 2 revisions in the stack. Here's the first one. This one was accepted. And this one is like, we're ready to go. But it's also, I think, associated. Where's the association listed? Added a dependent revision. So somewhere there is a dependency graph or something. I guess the stack talks about what's similar. Interesting. That's cool that there's like it's looking out for similar patches. But I'm guessing that stack is where you look at the dependency graph, unless there's another place to look at it. Create a multi. Yeah, those are the 2 places I can find right now. Oh, edit related objects, edit commits, edit related revisions, edit child revisions. Ooh, I can award a token. Wonder what that does. I'm gonna click on this. Ooh, I can choose a token. I can give like hey pence or a yellow metal or a like to a revision. That's nice. Flag for later. Very nice. So that's how all of that works. And I'm guessing that Calc is gonna wait until both. So this is interesting. I'm not entirely certain how it'll work for landing multiple revisions. Calc is waiting on this revision to be reviewed. This one, I presume, has not landed yet. Let's take a look inside Lando. This one's been accepted and can land, but is not yet landed. Not yet landed. And there have been no attempts. So presumably, Calc will wait until this one is also accepted, and then we'll either use Lando to land one at a time, or maybe Lando knows how to do multiple. But I'm not certain. Maybe we can find an example. Oh, my intern just posted a revision. This is great. My intern, Jay, posted a revision to Moz Review. Oh, look, he wrote a test. Oh, this is delightful. Thanks, Jay. Good work. So here are all his changes. I'm going to give him I'm going to award him a token. A like. He's also set me as a reviewer. I can rescind the token, but I will not do that. That doesn't sound like a thing I want to do. These are other similar revisions, but they are not the same. That's really neat. Similar revisions. I guess it's handy if you want to make sure that people aren't working on the same thing. He's only got one revision here, and these are the files he changed. I'm not going to review this. Well, maybe I should review this right now. Let's use Fabricator and Differential as a reviewer. Maybe that's how I'll close this episode out. We're going to review this patch as a reviewer for real, see what that's like, and then close the episode out. So, Jay wrote this. He posted it a couple minutes ago, like 4 minutes ago. This will move activity stream, about new tab, about home, and about welcome into its own special content process. We can deal with other about pages in a follow-up. We only support a single about process at the moment. This patch also adds a default uninitialized process type that is used by the script preloader. So immediately, I think that some of the script preloader stuff I'm not comfortable reviewing yet. So I'm going to request that he adds, like, can I like add another reviewer? Change reviewers. K-Mag, John Galt, Chris Maglione is not on here yet, so I can't request review from Chris Maglione. But he'll need to review this. Chris Maglione will need to review the script preloader stuff. But let's take a look one at a time. Let's look at these files and see what he did. Let's start with the test. So he adds a new test. Browser, new tab in about process pref. Skip if we're not using multi-process. That makes sense. He's doing this under browser-based content test tabs. Okay. So the first thing is above this. Well, I think we have a not a policy, but we have a tendency to put like a license block above here. Do we not? No, I guess not. I think it's actually understood that they're all in the public domain. So yeah, I think we're okay. So that's fine. Cancel. All right, so we have some utility functions. The first thing I want to do or want to suggest is, can you please add a comment block up here describing what this test is testing for? Okay. Now I can't tell if there's like two spaces of two. He's double spaced here, but I'm guessing he hasn't. So I'm going to assume that this is the leftmost character, and that there's no like he didn't double space every line. That's my guess. So, because otherwise it's like everything looks double spaced. Each of these functions should also be documented, please, including we have we're a bit inconsistent about how well we document things, but especially when adding a new file, it's nice to set the tone of how future revisions to the file should behave. So let's add function documentation, including what arguments are expected, what they do, etc. See browser test utils.jsm for the format. Oh, now's an excellent opportunity to use some of that formatting. Browser test utils here. Here's like an example of some documentation. Permalink, boom, whoops. And then we're gonna say, put that in a link. So what does this do? Function check browser in PID. So you pass in a browser, the PID, and a message. By convention, functions tend to start with a lowercase letter. Browser expected PID and message. And then what it does is it There's a simpler way of doing this. So what he's doing is he's using content task to ask the content process for a particular tab, what process are you in? Thankfully, there's an easier way to do this. Browser dot, let's try and see if we can do some like inline. Does it do code fencing like this? No? Okay. Code block. Let's see what that does. Code block. Okay. Browser dot linked. No. How's it? Browser dot frameloader dot tab parent dot ospid is how you can access the process ID for a particular tab. All right. Live hacking. Lang equals JS. Apparently I could do something called lang equals JS. Is that? I think that is actually syntax highlighted, but like if I were to like do let r equal that. Oh, wicked. That's how you do it. So that's how you do code fencing. Lang equals JS. Nice. Nice. Thank you. Nice. Man, there's a good sound effect. I just unlocked a skill. Play a Zelda sound. All right. Check browser remote type. Now this is interesting because I don't know if we expose that on the tab parent, but let's find out. Whoops. Or not IPDL, sorry, IDL. Process type, OSPID. Is there any interface where we expose that? Excuse me. Process type, schema API manager in JavaScript. So we can get it for ourselves, but how do we get it from a particular tab? So what he's doing by sending a message down to the content process, that's probably fine for now, but I wonder if we might want to make it easier to examine the process type. So what he's taking is the expected remote type in a message as using like is. This is probably fine for now. Using content task spawn. Fun fact, Stephen McLeod, who's the one who just told me about the code fencing part, wrote content task.jsm, and it's the best. Using content task spawn is probably your best bet to get the process type. Unfortunately, we don't currently expose that on NSI tab parent, but maybe we should. Maybe that's good follow-up work. Let's see here. Another way you... I tend to find it... You can avoid passing the message down. Message string down by awaiting the result of the task function, like so. Lang equals JS. And what I'm suggesting is he does this. Content task.spawn browser expected remote type, and then expected remote type. You can do like await, or not even expected remote type. You can just like pass null, and pass nothing, and be like wait return services app info to remote type, and then we can say like let type equal that, and then be like is type expected remote type ensure we're running in the right process type, something like that. So what's happening here, let me close the fence, whoopsie daisy, is that we can ask the content task that's spawned and run in the content process to give us back the remote type, which we can then await on. Although by awaiting, this assumes that check browser remote type, which should be check browser remote type with the lowercase c, is an async function, which I would recommend doing anyways. That's the typical pattern, is these helper functions become async, because most of these things, especially because they're messaging, are doing like awaiting on promises and stuff. Okay. So now he's got a couple of different tasks doing some things. Can you please add documentation above each of these add tasks describing at a high level the cases that it's testing? Okay. I'm also noticing that there is push pref env. He's doing the same pattern a few times. I think you can do this once. So I don't actually think these preferences are auto removed until the test file exits. They're not scoped to their tasks, but to the overall test file. So you can do this once. The convention is to have a setup task like so. Lang equals JS, add task, function, async function, setup. And then you do that. He will need to do the remove preloaded browser each time, though, unless oh no, I didn't mean to. Yeah, yay! I brought it back. The undo worked. Another thing you can do here is remove the preloaded browser once if it exists, and then disable preloading using the push pref env function, so that you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the test file. Okay. So what's the test doing? He removes the preloaded browser. He says use a separate about URI process, and then he's going to open a new tab at About New Tab, and he gets a browser. He makes sure that the About PID is what he expects. He's not. Right, so he does take it here and then he uses it again here. What I'd recommend, just like to put all the checks in like a single scope. I guess this is more of an aesthetic thing, but like, so check that process ID. He's got a function up here that will get the you can get the PID, so can get the PID using the technique I described above, and then you can probably use your check browser remote type helper function. Whoops, didn't mean to put a backtick there. And then he goes through each of these URLs, About New Tab, About Welcome, and About Home. He opens another tab. He's opening more tabs and then closing them and making sure that they're all in the same content process. But instead of tab browser isn't the best name here. Tab browser is kind of a special name for the thing that gbrowser is. Gbrowser is a variable pointing to an instance of Zool tab browser. So it'd probably be clearer to have a different name. Maybe name the first one browser 1 and the second one browser 2. Second one that we're opening and closing browser 2. That'll probably be made clear by the documentation that you put at the top of this add task. That's not super typical. That's when the task finishes, some console logging goes out. To say so. You probably can skip this, but in place of it, you should probably make the function name more descriptive, like JS add task async function my test thing I am testing for, and thing I am testing for will be mentioned as starting and stopping. This is mostly by convention. Okay. So I think that's a pretty decent test. Just overall, what he's doing is he's opening a tab, making sure it's at the about process type, and then he opens up each of the different varieties in a separate tab while that first one's still open, and making sure that they're in the right process, the same process, and have the same process type, and obviously have the same process type. Okay, great. So I already mentioned that we should put documentation above each add task, and we don't need these if we have a setup function. So what is this test doing? He's got test HTTP. What is that constant pointing at? Test HTTP is at example.org. I'm not sure if example.org is properly mapped inside our test files. I know example.com is. Oh, so it is. Good. So he's going to example.org. I wonder if test HTTP, hang on, as a style thing, generally we avoid doing the lined up equals thing because it's so fragile once. It can be fragile. Though it does look nice. That's more of a style net. So in this test, he goes to that page. Let's call this something rather than tab browser. Checks that it's at the web remote type. That's fine. And then he's going to go through a bunch of URLs. He's going to load them. Okay, so he's going to transition and make sure that each one is at the right remote type. So about new tab should be about. Then he goes to about blank, and that should stay in the about remote type. Then he transitions to example.org, that goes to the web. Then about home, that goes to about remote type. Then HTTP goes back to the web. Then about welcome, about remote type, HTTP, and then blank. I think that's pretty comprehensive. So he loads the URI. He waits until it's loaded. I actually think that load URI will wait for this. Let me just double check. Load URI. Oh, resolves when we started loading the URI. Okay, so he's right. We have to wait for browser loaded. Although, I don't think you don't actually need to await load URI here. I think just ignoring the promise it returns is fine, and then we can just await the browser loaded stuff. Browser loaded. And the reason I say that is part of me is worried. What does browser loaded do? Browser loaded. Browser loaded is waiting for a bunch of stuff to occur, like certain messages to come up. And the only thing I'm worried about is that if you wait for load URI, I worry about the event loop breathing long enough that the messages that we're waiting for are fired before we can attach our event listeners. And maybe that's completely unfounded, but at the very least, if you get rid of the await, then we know that we attach the things that browser loaded is waiting for in the same tick as calling load URI. Now, what are the arguments? Tab browser false and URL. Browser false URL want load. Yeah, that makes sense. Same as above, don't need this. And then async function, new tab. So what he's doing here is he opens up a new tab, and then he waits and he ensures it's at the right about process, gets the process ID. Check that about new tab open from JS in about new tab page is in the same process. So he's calling content. Oh, interesting. He's calling like window.open from inside the about new tab. That's a good idea. We should await this remove tab function call. And then he gets the linked browser, makes sure that's just the open tab, not there yet. If new, well, that should be promise tab open, wait for new tab. Is this racy? Why do we have to handle this case? Since I'm pretty certain we default to selecting the new tab. Check that reload does not break the about content process affinity. I think there's a different function you can call. I think it's like browser reload. Yeah. I think you can just call browser reload, which is just wired directly. It's like every single reload, as opposed to just like the button. Clicking the button, it's like the keyboard shortcuts also, they're both pointing at the browser reload function. Await the browser loaded, check that's still on the page, load the HTTP. So Weber history back feature switches back, that's a good idea. History forward feature switches, yeah, that's a good idea. History index does not break affinity. Okay. So that's all pretty comprehensive. Good job. Good job, Jay. Now in here in content child, he's adding inside receive remote type. We can receive in content child, I guess, a remote type for the content child to know about. And if it equals about remote type, which I guess will be defined in a header somewhere, then we set the process name to about : content. Nice. Yeah, here's that little bit. And then down here in content parent, if content process type equals literal about, right. It's funny that it wouldn't use the constants. Out of curiosity, can we use the constants like about remote type here? And he's got his uninitialized state and then the about type, sorry, not state, uninitialized state, uninitialized type and about type. And then when we get the current process type, we assert that it's not uninitialized. And then when we get the child process type, if remote type equals literal about remote type, process type is about. All right. That makes sense to me. And then he's adding a pref. Browser tabs remote separate about URI process. We did something similar for file URLs. Is there something like separate file URI process? Yeah. So that makes sense. Separate file URI process. Where is that pref defined? Probably put them together. line 3239. And he just at 32. He's just a little down. So file linked web and file URI separate about URI. That makes sense here. About URIs. Okay, I like it. E2NS utils, he adds a use separate about URI process lazy preference getter. Defaults to false. And then there's an about remote type. So he's saying that if the module name, let module name equals a URI period path query ref replace. He's replacing anything that's like after the scheme and the so anything that's like about config and like, so you can have like the ref, what is it? A reference hash after a URI like this, and he's stripping that off as well as query params. He's first replacing those with nothing, and he's lowercasing the whole thing. And I think there's an easier way of doing that if you have a URI. Let's go to about config and let's look at G browser selected browser. Let's pump up the font. Let's clear out this stuff. Get rid of all that business. G browser current URI. We've got the spec. So if I put like about config foobar. The spec is about config foobar. Okay. About current UI host. Nope. Display spec. That's interesting. An ASCII spec and file path. I wonder if that's what we want. File path. Foobar, and what about like foobar? File path. Config. I think that's what we want here. So we can skip some regex, I think. I think we can skip some regex and just get at auri.filepath to avoid things like the query params and reference anchor things. Reference anchor. Maybe we can also avoid all of this lookup if use separate about URI process is false. Like have that be the first thing we check. So line equals JS if use separate about URI process. If home new tab welcome includes a URI.filepath, then, well, I guess we could combine these. If use separate and that, then return about remote type. So basically I'm saying reverse these two. So that you can like short circuit and we can avoid like the lookup in the array and accessing the file path in the URI if this Boolean is false. All right. This looks great. So this looks really great. Jay, really pleased to see such comprehensive testing too. Have you tried pushing this to try server yet? Out of curiosity. We'll probably kmag to sign off on the script preloader change. He doesn't appear to have a Fabricator account, so you might have to ping him on IRC or need info him on the bug. Or just have him, if he's not, I can, if he gives a verbal okay, I'm happy to accept those changes too. Okay, so I'm gonna request changes. I think that's what I'm gonna do here. This was a great patch. I'm really happy to see what Jay's got. I'm gonna post that for review now. Or post that as my review. One of your actions has no effect. Transaction, differential revision reviewers. Apply remaining actions. Yeah, cancel. Yeah, this change reviewers I never did. So apparently you can do multiple actions. And I'm not actually changing reviewers, so I'm gonna remove that. It's pretty neat. Pretty neat. I really like this review interface. I'm sold. I'm sold, people. I love it. So there you go. I did a review. I've posted stuff to Arcanist or via Arcanist to Fabricator today, and I did a review. So feels good. And we did a little bit of an exploration into Lando, but I think I'm getting the hang of it. The one thing I didn't do was look at how you wire together revisions. If you have multiple commits, and that's a thing that maybe I'll look at next time. So we've gone way long. Sorry about that. I'm going to call it here. Hey, thanks so much for watching episode 142 of The Joy of Coding. Thanks for being here with me. I hope that was useful. I will be having episode 143 next week. I'm not traveling for once, so I will see you next week. Hey, stay safe out there. Keep on rocking the free web. Take care. See you next week. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.